How a person should act so that he would not steal freedom of choice from other person.
Любить.
To love.
Ну, любовь бывает тоже такая,
Although love you can
как называется,
also can be, how should I put it?
матери, которая душит своего
Like
ребенка.
mothers that strangle their children, out of love.
То есть
To love means to put
ставить его
his
желание,
desires,
путь
his path,
своего.
above your own. Like an example with parents you keep bringing up. They, you say they arrange their children's life according to their own understanding of the world. What is right and what is not right. And that's why it is said in the Bible.
Воспитывая ребенка от
Train your child in the way he should go. But how to determine the way? That's what's not clear.
его желания,
And this comes from the point where you take his desires and work with them rather than with your own. Well, practically speaking, we have mother, father, and a child. Well, did I ever patronize, give orders to my children? No.
сына не было другого выхода,
Well, my son didn't have any choice.
заболевание,
He had
и он должен был жить.
bad health issues with his skin, and he had to live in northern climate, so now he lives in Canada.
Одна
And one daughter from early age wanted to be a biologist, and so she became.
дочка,
And the second daughter, she was always interested in psychology, philosophy, so she graduated majoring in philosophy.
все.
And that is all.
Я никого не...
I never forced anybody into anything. She wanted to get married, so she did.
Сын сам для себя
My son found a wife from France on his own.
Франции. Я ничего
I
не
didn't
спрашивал.
I didn't ask
Ничего
anything.
не говорил, ни во
I
что не
never said anything. I never stood on somebody's way. Whenever I could help, that's all. But at the level of nurturing, how did you build this basis to implement the principle of training your children according to their ways? Your son, your daughters? Nothing in particular. I put an effort to keep them in a surrounding
более-менее в том,
which was more or less safe,
в котором
in which they couldn't have
подловили
caught some kind of, mental viruses. That's all. Nothing more than that.
сын прошел за определенную школу. Здесь
Son graduated from school here in Israel, then in Montreal and Toronto.
в
My daughter graduated from one university,
университете другом.
the other graduated from another university. That's all.
И воспитывались
And they were growing
в нормальных таких
in a normal environment.
условиях. То есть
Well,
довольно
I want to say relatively conservative.
консервативных.
Conservative.
Они все
They all remained in this frames of conservative education.
И я считаю,
And I think that's the way it's supposed to be with kids.
иначе все равно ты
Otherwise, you always get influenced by other streams, and which today don't have any, well, I don't know, any direction, being thrown all over the place. But look, a person, let's say, a person can't force his kids to study Kabbalah just because he or she likes it. Then I'm not forcing anyone. No, I'm not talking about you. I'm saying in general. If we look at it from side, of course, it's not acceptable, not in any circumstances. No, I'm talking about some of your students. On one hand, a parent must give a child a chance to make his own choice, but at the same time, parents still parent. You have some students that simply impose those things to their children. To their children, that I don't know anything about. But as a matter of principle,
так сказать, ребенок,
if a child is still in his early age, you still give him a certain amount of knowledge. You pass on to him what you consider to be important. That's the way the world is arranged. That's the knowledge that you're passing on to him. If you consider Kabbalistic knowledge to be necessary, that's what you give him. And if you considered some other knowledge to be important, that's what you would have imposed to him.
что же лучше, если
Here we can't say anything. That's just the way the world is arranged. So is it better than when others give to their children different kind of knowledge? So it's natural.
для отца?
It's natural for a father.
Ты заставлял бы других
To enforce, you ask? Well,
навык
be so. He wouldn't enforce different kind of knowledge or skills. This is basically what's norm in nature,
в нашей жизни
the way it's ordered in our lives.
право на существование.
That has
Я не могу
all the rights for its
не
existence.
притрагивайся к ребенку. Ты кто?
I can't tell to others not to influence their children.
Понимать что-то от окружения.
A child will still be influenced by the environment, one way or another.
Ну вот эти вот вещи как бы
But all these things
рождают вот это вот
bring up this issue of,
недоверие
you know,
человека.
an issue of not pushing a person, what we began with.
Ну, не
What do you mean not pushing? Am I, as a father, am I obligated to nurture my son? I'm asking you.
Навыков, устоев.
I think I am obligated. It's clear. I have to give him certain value and knowledge, foundation examples, which will later on grow into habits, which will later on will act upon those habits. He will act upon those habits throughout his life
Из своих того
that you cannot avoid, and that's the way you were brought up.
но ты являешься
With all that nurturing that you had, whether it was bad or good, you're a result of that environment you had during your childhood, and then during teenage years. That's the upper,
высшее
we
управление,
can't get rid of it. That's the upper governance
создало,
that created such system around us.
и каждый рождается в
And each of us is born in a certain environment, in a certain surrounding, in a particular setting.
Поэтому тут и говорить.
Thus, we should not even talk about all this.
Это глупо
It's
возражать,
simply foolish to object to it
если так природой все.
if all is arranged by nature in this way.
это не возражение. Вот
This is not an objection. I clearly remember when I was little, when I would hear some things from my parents or grandparents, and they would be telling me about a dog called Laika, I would say, meaning I've received an information, maybe false information from a different person, and that information was imprinted in me. So when I grew up, I would see a dog. I would perceive it as that Laika that I once heard about. And you can't get rid of it, and you will never will all your life.
первая прошивка,
So this first layer that I received being a child from my parents,
знаете, как вот
the information that I received from them, you know, like my dad told me, my mom told me, yes,
Ничего не сделаешь.
and nothing you can do about it. No, nothing you can do about it. That's the way it's all arranged in this world, and that's why it's advised
Воспитывать родителей.
to educate parents so they would properly educate their children.
Вот и все. Проблема воспитания.
And the issue of education is the biggest issue.
Проблема.
I would say that's the only issue of the world.